Good evening, everybody. If everybody will stand, get your blue hymnals, turn to page, is it 92? 90. It's good to have everybody here tonight, and as y'all can see, the preacher, he didn't quite make it back. They had some technical difficulties with the plane, but he's in Charlotte, so he has made it back around closer, but he should be home here in a little while. So just remember him as he travels. I'd rather take a good whooping than have to come from Charlotte right now, as messy as the roads are. I hate Charlotte. That's a bad place to drive, but just remember him as he travels. Remember Brother Zach as he's getting ready to stand and preach for us. He had me nervous too, because the preacher texted us today and told us, he said, I'm not going to be able to make it. He said, Zach, you cover it. And then he said, if he can't make it, you got it next. I said, so I sat there in the deer stand this evening and watched my phone the whole time. I was watching that dot to see if Zach moved. He kept staying at work. I thought, man, he's cutting it close. And then he called me when I was on my way home. He said, I'm heading home. I said, all right, that sounds good to me. But just remember him as he gets ready to speak this evening. Does anybody have any outspoken prayer requests this evening? We'll start over here. Okay, let's remember this little girl. Continue to remember Miss Linda. Remember Miss Vicky as well. Miss Pat. Remember this family. this gentleman?
Just remember him and his family.
Okay. Miss Diane? All right, let's remember this. Mama?
One of the ladies I work with, her stepson's on the ventilator, he had pneumonia, but I think he has a lot of alcohol use and he's in a weakened state. There's children involved and it looks like they're gonna take the children and stuff. Please pray for that family, their hearts are breaking.
Miss Chloe?
Mama Gilmore at the elementary part of our school, she has cancer. I really want to her Chloe.
All right, well, let's remember this young lady that Chloe goes to school with that's got cancer. She's in elementary school, so just remember her and remember her family. Anybody else? Y'all remember me. I got some decisions to make it work. Whether I take another job or whether I stay where I'm at. I just want to be where God wants me to be. Money ain't everything. It don't matter if I got to picking up cans on the side of the road. As long as that's what God wants me to do, that's where I want to be. Anybody else?
I want to thank the old boys for praying that for me, trying to do the job. Sure helped me. I can get people to do praying for me. Just keep on.
That's our duty as a Christian to pray for one another. Because you don't ever know what your brother or sister's going through. Miss Linda?
I have a prayer report. One of this that I went through a few days back, I kept waiting, and so they sent me a letter. And they told me that I was okay, that it was non-cancerous. And to me, I mean everything to me, because that's what they were looking for, actually. And because I had problems with that, several years back, and so they thought maybe it might have flared up again. And so when I got the letter from him, it was just telling me, don't you worry, God's got everything under control.
That's right.
And I believe that with all my heart. And I'm looking for him to answer many more prayers. I'm just trusting him. And thank y'all for your prayers. I appreciate it. Won't you let me know?
Let's continue to remember Miss Linda. And we serve a big God. I don't know whether y'all realize that or not. You don't believe it, you try. He'll prove you how big he really is. If nobody else has any prayer requests, we'll go to the Lord in a word of prayer. Anybody that's willing to, we'll gather around the altar and we'll seek God's will this evening. Brother Travis, when you get here, will you lead us in a word of prayer? Get your blue hymnal and stand and turn to page 32.
Good evening. Now, how many of y'all come here to learn more about Israel? No, not hardly. I can't even teach you about my own land. Well, and as Bradley said, this afternoon when I got that text, I got it and all of a sudden you get busy at work. Does that happen to anybody? You get slammed at work. And all I had time was say, I'll be there as soon as I can. I'll be there when I can get there. And Hope Bradley said, pull the fire alarm if you got to. Just be here. And I didn't even get to answer that text. And before I got a chance to answer it, he done text me, hey, you gonna be there? You gonna be there? I didn't get to that. A couple hours later, you gonna be there tonight? You gonna be there tonight? He said, man, you got me nervous. You gonna be here tonight? And I thought, man, I said, I heard all about that lesson on Sunday. I said, man, I could hear that thing again. I could hear it today. But no, I'm thankful for the opportunity. I hate that I'm up here, and the only reason I'm up here is because the preacher's not here, because I'd much rather hear him, but I'm thankful to have the opportunity to fill in when needed. Tonight, it's not going to take long. Jennifer asked me, the preacher's wanting to know, he can be here such time. Will you be done, or can you hold it till it? No, we're going to be long gone. I said, just tell him go in the house. We will be done. I'm not a real, I don't have the mind capacity as the preacher, so I can't go as deep as he can, but nonetheless, I'm thankful to be up here. I'm going to ask you if y'all would turn to Exodus 17. Exodus 17, and I know you're thinking, good gracious, here we go with the Old Testament. I love the Old Testament. I love the Old Testament. I love talking about Israel because God blessed Israel. He was the chosen nation, and I love talking about them because God clearly blessed them. And you know what? Anybody sitting here today, God clearly blessed you. And a lot of times we forget just how blessed we are, as I was able to preach a few weeks ago on not forgetting about where God had brought you. But this is going to be a little different, but it's going to be about the nation and what they were facing. And y'all just pray for them tonight. I've been battling a cold all week. I come in Monday evening. I told Megan, I said, I do not feel good. I said, I just want to take some medicine and go to bed. First thing she jumped on, you got that man flu. Oh, it ain't that bad. I said, I didn't complain. I just said, I'm not feeling good. I want to go to bed. Oh, here we go. I said, I'm not complaining. I said, I'm just saying, I don't feel good. I'm ready to go to bed. So y'all just hang in there and listen by the sniffles, and we're going to make it through here. And we might be out of here in 20 minutes. Who knows? But in Exodus 17, I'm going to read the first 7 verses. The first 7 verses. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness. I am in the right verse, right? Good. On the way here, I kept flipping to the wrong book. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim. And there was no water for the people to drink. Wherefore the people did chide with Moses, and said, Give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, Why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? And the people thirsted there for water. And the people murmured against Moses, and said, Wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt, to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, What shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to stone me. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go on before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand, and go. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. The last verse I want to read here, verse 7 says, And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, Is this Lord among us or not? I'm going to ask Brother Keith if you would pray for me. In these verses here, we read of the children of Israel. Seems like every time I get behind this pulpit, I talk about it, and I refresh. But don't forget where they've come from. The children of Israel, they have been in the wilderness. God led them through the wilderness, brought them out of captivity. But let's think about where they're currently at and what they've seen God do. They've seen God bring 10 plagues upon Egypt, made Pharaoh loosen his hand upon them, and he told them to go. They didn't go empty-handed. They went with all their children, all their belongings, and they were even sent with some belongings. They were blessed. Pharaoh told them to go. They've seen how God had to harden Pharaoh's heart and how he had to work through Pharaoh to get them out. They've been led with a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. I can't imagine that. But I know we read about the desert. The desert is hot. It's hot. It's dry. There's nothing there. There's nothing that will grow there. But I believe God, with His pillar of fire, kept them warmed by night. And by day, the cloud, it kept them cool by the day. And I believe God led them. And one of their first battles that they seen was when they got to the Red Sea. It's been talked about many times, but when they got to the Red Sea, they looked back and they seen the Egyptian army pursuing after them. They said, where do we go? Why in the world did we leave Egypt? We was better back there than we were here. We're getting ready to die. Where are we going to go? Moses said, wait and see the salvation of the Lord. And God, as we all know, God split the waters, and they walked through not on wet ground, but on dry ground. And God led them through there. Well, that wasn't just everything that God did. Yeah, we talk about it, but a lot of times we forget about it and overlook the fact that not only did God take them through the Red Sea, but He drowned the entire Egyptian army in the Red Sea. God has done a marvelous work in their lives. God had fed them manna. He's fed them quail. He's made bitter water sweet. They have seen God move in their life here. But you know what? They're like many of us, and they forgot about what this God has done for them. And I'm not going to preach on that same thought. But if you look in verse 2 and 4, I'm going to reread it. It says, wherefore the people did chide with Moses and said, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? And the people thirsted there for water, and the people murmured against Moses. The people look at Moses and they said, Moses, it's your fault. You let us out here. You give me water. Moses said, I believe just like you, boys. He said, fellas, he said, I am no different than you. He said, but God said He was going to use me to deliver. He said, I've got to go to God. And the people said, no, we're going to die out here. Our children's going to die. We're going to die. Our cattle's going to die. Everything that we've got, we're going to die. And they went back to the stage that they were at, where they were saying they was better back in Egypt, because in Egypt they had water. In Egypt they were taken care of. They had no worries. Yes, they were in bondage. They was in slavery, but they knew they wasn't going to die from thirst. Moses led them into the wilderness. God was meeting their needs, but when they thought it wasn't going their way, they were quick to complain and pass the blame upon Moses for not having the water. So the nation, they complain and pass the blame. Now, I'm just going to be real with you. If you're like me, many times we pass the blame. A lot of times we see something happen or maybe something going on in our lives we don't understand. God, why in the world would you let this happen to me? God, why would you do this? Why would you lead me here? Why would you just leave me all alone when God's right there with you? God was there with them. They could see Him during the day. They could see Him during the night with the pillar of cloud and the fire by night. But they forgot that God was meeting their needs, and God was going to continue to meet their needs. Verse 7 says, "And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, Is the Lord among us or not?" Is God really with us? Now, I would say that we know better. I would say we know better, but quite honestly, if you're like me, a lot of times you're going to ask that same very question. Is God really with me? You go to the doctor and you get not the quite report that you was looking for. God, are you really here? God, why am I having to go through this? God had not only been there, but He had been meeting their every need. After everything that God had brought them through, why would they think God was not with them? And let's be real for a moment. Have you ever thought that way? Why is God not here? If you're honest, you're going to say, yeah. Because a lot of people believe that the Christian religion is hunky and dory once you get saved. I'm going to tell you, and just like I told the Sunday school class Sunday, when you become a child of God, to be quite honestly, it's harder. It's harder. Because you're living in a world that cares nothing about the name of Jesus. You're living in a world that cares nothing about God, but you've got to make it. You've got to be that light, because sometimes you're the only Bible that people ever reads. But I want to talk a few minutes on the thought of all dried up. All dried up. Do you know of a Christian, maybe even yourself, that God has moved in your life? You've seen God move. You've seen God save people. You've seen God work here. You've seen God work on the outside of these walls. But there's something in your heart and in your life that just don't seem to go the way you think it should go, and you get dried up. You stop seeing the blessings of God. You stop seeing where God has brought you from. You forget about that time that God filled your pantry when you had no money. You forget about that time that God met your need when you didn't have any money. You didn't know how you was going to pay the light bill. You didn't know how you was going to pay the mortgage payment, but God met your need. You start to get dried up. I've been there. It's a terrible place to be. When you start to get dried up, you start to get bitter. You get bitter. God, why are you doing this? How come I'm scraping by, but it seems like these people that live like hell and the devil is having no issues. They're making it, but look at me, God, I'm trying to do right, and this is how I get treated. This is what I get faced with. And then they start to get bitter. They start blaming people. They start looking just like the nation of Egypt or Israel looked at Moses and said, Moses, why did you bring us out here? Moses, give us water. And they started demanding from Moses. They got bitter. They forgot about the God that brought them out. They forgot about everything because it was all dried up. But just for the next couple minutes, I want to talk about how do you keep from getting dried up. Because if you're quite honest, I bet many of y'all have been there before. I bet many of y'all, if you're like me, you have got dried up. You forgot about the blessings of God in your life. But how do you keep from getting dried up? 3 things, simple things, not deep, and then we'll go to the house. But first, how do you keep from drying up? This right here. You dig in it. You study it. I don't feel like studying. I don't feel like it. But you know what? God didn't say, hey, if you feel like reading it, read it. Hey, if you feel like doing it, just do it. He said, this is your help. This is my help. There's many times that I wake up of a morning to get ready for work. The last thing I want to do is I'm getting ready to walk outdoors. Get this and read it. I'm just being honest, being real. And then after a hard day, you come home and the last thing you want to do is to get this, open it, and read it. Because it's going to show you who you're supposed to be and who you're not. But you got to dig in this Word if you're going to be, if you're going to keep from getting dried up. Psalms 119:11 says, Thy word I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee. We all know that verse. It's a simple verse. If you don't hide this word in your heart, what you going to do when that situation comes up? What you going to do when your boss man says, Hey buddy, sorry to say it, but we don't need you no more. What are you going to do when the bank calls you because they're saying, hey, we ain't seen payment in 2 months on this house. If you don't make a payment, we're going to take it back. What you going to do? What you going to lean on? You can't. If you don't know how God works and you don't see the blessings of God, don't expect Him to help you just in the hard times. You've got to dig in the Word. You've got to. What else do? You seek God in prayer. You seek God in prayer. I've said this before, but prayer is not a crutch. It's not something that we just fall back onto. For a Christian, it ought to be a duty. It ought to be a duty. We got around this altar. If we didn't believe that prayer worked, then we shouldn't even got up here. We shouldn't even be here today. But if you think back, we've all seen prayer work in somebody's life. Philippians 4:6, Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. Wait a minute, God knows all my needs. He knows my desires. Why do I need to tell Him that? God said, hey buddy, you tell me. You tell me by prayer and supplication. Then y'all have a family member or what you would call a friend that seems to never get you on the phone until they need something? Y'all don't have people like that, do you? You know when you pull out your phone and you, oh man, no, what is it now? What do they want? Y'all must not have people like that. Maybe I'm the only one. Yeah, I'm just as worldly as a lot of y'all. But you got to seek God in prayer. And Zach, are you telling me this because you do this, and you're telling me that I'm not? No, I'm going to tell you. I don't pray near as much as I should, and I just bet that y'all don't either. There's always room for improvement. But you dig into God's Word and you seek God in prayer. Then finally, this is one that I lean on a lot. You fellowship with your brethren. You fellowship with your brethren. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, Wherefore comfort yourselves together and edify one another, even as also ye do. Years ago, when I first come to this church, I knew this church was different the first Sunday I walked in. I didn't quite understand it, but the first Sunday I come in, I felt like I had been here weeks. And as the Sundays went by, I felt like I've been here longer and longer. I had people coming up to me, shaking hands. I've been in those churches that you kind of just stay to your section. When the preacher says, amen, you say, all right, time to go eat. Everybody, and doors are closed in 10 minutes. But you got to fellowship with your brethren. When you get saved, your desires as a Christian will change from the worldly desires that you had. And how do you keep from getting dried up? Well, yeah, you seek God in prayer. You read and learn His Word, but you fellowship with your brethren. There's many times that maybe you're facing something that somebody else has faced within maybe your congregation, maybe maybe your pastor, and they can help you through that. The last thing you need to do as a Christian is go seek worldly advice. Because the world's not going to think like you. They're not going to think about what God thinks is right, what Jesus says. They're going to think about you, yourself, and you. What I would do if I was in your situation. This is how I would do it. You've got to fellowship with your brethren. And I don't know if y'all know this or not, but anytime we have a gathering here, anytime, whether it's a senior citizens deal, whether it's an auction, whether it's an Easter egg hunt, you have all age groups every time we're here. And you know what? I love it. I love it. I love coming here. I love coming here, and I love just the fellowship. Because a lot of times the fellowship is what gets me through some stuff. Even if you don't even talk about it and seek advice, a lot of times the fellowship will help get you through. There was one time that I had a family member trying to get a hold of me, and I pulled out my phone in church. Oh, well, I'll have to get to it later. You never know with family if something's happened, but just call me when you, later on they sent me a text, said just call me when you can. Well, an hour went by, and 2 hours. Well, we got out of church. On our way to get something to eat, I called him. I said, hey, sorry I didn't get your phone call. We was at church. It's 2 o'clock. I said, yeah. I said, well, we just got out a few minutes ago. I said, but we was on our way to get lunch. And I just want to call, make sure everything's okay, and see what you needed or something like that. And he's, what kind of church you go to? I said, it's 2 o'clock. And they asked me this. And I'm not picking on anybody or anything, but he asked me, he said, you don't go to a black church? I said, no, I don't. I said, but you know what? I said, I love my church. I said, and if you hadn't noticed, even tonight, when it's over, there'll probably still be people here for 25, 30 minutes, and the preacher probably would have time to make it. There might be some have to leave, but the preacher probably could make it here, and we could have a business meeting or anything like that, but I love the fellowship. A lot of times the fellowship is what gets me through the hard times, even if the hard time is not even talked about, because you can be an encouragement to them, or they can be an encouragement to you, and they have no idea what you're going through. If you allow yourself to get dried up spiritually, what good are you? What good are you? How much can God use you if you're dried up? If you get bitter? If there's something between you and a fellow brother, something bother you? And I'm going to tell you, a lot of times it is the small things. I remember back when we in this building project, and the preacher was asking us, what you think about this? What you think about that? And just like I told somebody a few weeks ago, I said, quite honestly, I said, it doesn't matter to me if that wall's pink with yellow polka dots. If the carpet is bright blue, I don't care. I said, not sound mean, but I don't come for the wall color. I don't come for the carpet color. I don't come for the seat color. It really doesn't matter to me. I just want the church that we had before to fill this same congregation. And the one thing that worried me about expanding on this was losing that homey feeling. I love that. I know that there's men and women here that if I need them or if I need to just talk with them, I can go to them. I know there's people that will be willing to help me if I need help. I did not want to lose that. So, what capacity can you be used in by God if you're dried up? You can't be. You can't be. In closing here, I know you're thinking in closing. All right, yeah. Am I the only nut in here that loves cleaning cars? Man, I was hoping your daddy was going to be here, because that Mustang, when he drove it, was super shiny. I don't know if he did it, but I absolutely love it. Now, don't come up to me after service, because I'm going to tell you what, I love it so much. My wife's has probably got the nastiest car out there, but I love it. I've washed cars in snow. I've washed it in ice. I've washed it right before the rain cloud popped up, knowing it was on the way. I absolutely love it. But I don't have a whole lot of time for it right now. But when it comes to washing cars, now the inside, I could care less about the inside. I don't care about the inside. The kids done got flarp stuck in the carpet. It won't come out. There's tissue or bubble gum stuck to the doors. There's just greasy handprints all down the windows. I'm like, this is nasty. We ought to take it somebody to clean it up. Now, I love doing the outside. When it comes to the outside of a car, the dirtier the better. I absolutely love it. Now, don't bring me a truck that just got out of the mud bog and say, hey, you got 15 minutes, because I can't do it in 15 minutes. But I absolutely love the challenge of cleaning the car. Well, y'all don't love it. Y'all probably don't even like it. I told you, I'm a nut, but I absolutely love it. But when you're cleaning a car, if you just, on a hot summer day, if you take it outside and you just wash it off and you let it set in the sun, and it dries off, what's it going to look like in an hour? It's going to look spotty. You're going to have runs everywhere, especially on a black car, right? Or dark blue, any of the dark colors. And when I see something like it, it just eats at me, but I love doing it. Well, how do you keep from getting spots on a car? Well, y'all don't like it. Y'all don't love it. Y'all probably don't even know about it. And I was telling Megan about what I was going to talk about. And she said, I don't even know what that is. I don't know if they're going to know what that is. I said, nobody stopped me before, and I'm usually different anyway, so I'm going to talk about it. Well, there is a drying cloth that you use. Right? Y'all know what I'm talking about, drying cloth. How about if I call it a chamois? I was asking Bradley on the way here. I called him, I said, hey man, I love cleaning cars. I live in the city, so normally I don't have a chamois. I used to have them, but now when I get done washing them, I just take them around the block, blow them off. I said, I've got lazy. I said, do you have a chamois? I said, I know you hate washing the car, but do you have a chamois? He said, I don't think so. He said, I think I threw mine away. We stopped at the Dollar General on the way in. They didn't have one either. But many of y'all know what a chamois is, right? They come in a little tube. You take the cap off and you pull the chamois out. What does it look like? Y'all know what it is. Y'all know what it comes in, but you're like, what are you digging? What you trying to get? When you pull a chamois out, normally when you buy them new, they're dry. In order to make that chamois useful, what do you have to do? You got to what? You got to wet it. And then you got to work it in. Now when you get a wet chamois, it will go in any shape you want. It will do anything you want. And you take that chamois and you wipe it all over the car to get the water off, and then it gets so saturated that you can pick it up and it will just run off, but you wring it out and you keep going. You keep going around the car and around the car and around the car and around the car until it's dry, and you're thinking, yeah, you idiot. You go around the car umpteen times. But I love it. You dry it off, but think about that chamois in the state it was when it pulled out. If I was to pull that chamois out of the little container and walk straight up to the car, start rubbing on the car, the wet car, what would happen? Or let me ask, what wouldn't happen? Would that car get dry? I'm going to tell you, if you take a dry chamois to a wet car, you might as well go ahead and call the body shop, because you're going to tear that paint job all to pieces. It is no good if you do not wet that cloth first. But once you wet that cloth, you can fold it, you can ball it up, however you want to go. That chamois is going to go there But you have to wet it first. And we're no different. Imagine that chamois being your heart. If your heart is hard, if you're bitter, if you are asking God, why am I facing this? And you try to understand it, and God don't show you why, and you start getting bitter at God, bitter against other people, and you start holding grudges, God can't use you. God can't use you. How do you get to where God can use you? You get in that Word. You get in fellowship. You get in prayer. And once God starts softening that heart again, and you let that bitterness go, you let that trouble go that maybe was in between you and a brother, God can start to use you again. God can start to work in many ways, but when you're dried up like that, you don't see what God's done for you. You don't see where He's brought you from. You don't see how God has met your needs your 30, 40, 50 years of your life. And you let the world get in there and harden that heart. But you got to be like that chamois. You got to let God soften it back up. Once it's softened up, you are now good for use. But if you don't let God soften you up, God can't use you. God simply cannot use you. Well, Zach, you have no idea what I'm going through. You don't know what I face. You don't know the amount of prayers I've prayed for that lost soul. You have no idea what I'm facing. You're exactly right. I have no idea. You can sit there all day and tell me what it's like in your shoes, but I'm not going to understand. Not because I don't care, but because I'm not. But there is one who does. Zach, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm going to give up. I'm going to dry up. I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of doing that. If there was anybody in this Bible, many examples, but if there was anybody, somebody that comes to my mind, would be Paul. If anybody had a reason to dry up on God, it would be Paul. God blessed Paul in a mighty, marvelous way. Paul was on his way to persecute Christians. He was going to go get them, and God met him on that Damascus road. God saved his soul, and he softened that heart. Once he softened that heart, you think of who Paul was before or when he was Saul. He was a murderer. He didn't care about anybody. You profess Jesus. He didn't care. He's going to kill you. He did not care. But you look how God used Paul. Paul wrote half of our New Testament. Well, God can't use me. Who are you to say God can't use you? With that kind of attitude, no, God can't. I've said before, many times I went to preacher. I said, preacher, I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you, preacher. And what about? You know, is there anything? First thing he'd ask me, anything wrong? I said, no, nothing's wrong. But I would say, preacher, I said, I feel impressed that God's wanting me to do more. God's wanting me to do more. And I would talk to him, and I said, but I just can't. I just can't. And God could not use me to do more until I got past the I can't. And I had to keep saying, I can't. But really it was, I wouldn't. And it was, I just had to, I prayed and I prayed, God, get me on first shift. God, get me here. Please get me here. I was sick and tired of missing Wednesday evening service. I was sick and tired of missing revival. I was sick and tired of missing things when they go on here on weekends. And in the meantime, God was dealing with my heart. But I prayed about that for years and years. And every time I would think I had an opportunity to go to first, I get a door slammed in my face. And many times this boy right here, God, why in the world would you do that? Why, God? Look, I want to go to church. I want to be here. I'm tired of using vacation to come here. Many times y'all know that's been here any length of time. I love to come to that Thanksgiving service, but I'm never able to come because I couldn't get off. I said, God, just let me come. And he never would answer that prayer. And it got very discouraging. Well, in the meantime, God was dealing in my heart about stepping behind the pulpit. God, I'm not qualified. That's a good thing. It's a good thing I wasn't, because he don't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And I said, all right, God. And I gave in. I'm no deep preacher. I call myself a Moses because I'm not good with speech, but I did it. December the 31st of last year was the first time I got behind a pulpit. It was down there. February the 1st, or 2nd, or 3rd, one of them days, plant manager shook my hand and said, I got the job. I'm going to first shift. But I had to move first. I had to get over, God, why won't you let me go to first? Why won't you let me do this? Why should I? What are you doing for me? But I was starting to dry up. I said, all right, God, whatever you would have for me, I want to do. But I definitely don't want to dry up. And when it comes to drying up, it's very dangerous on God. Bitterness, I tell you what, if you've ever fought with bitterness, it is a hard trial. But if you start to feel yourself dry up, get in that word. If you start to feel yourself dry up, get around the people of like fellowship. If you start to feel yourself dry up, you better get a hold of God in prayer. Because when bitterness sneaks in and you start drying up, your brother can't help you. Your sister can't help you. You got to help. You got to seek help. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you, dear God, for letting me stand up behind this pulpit, dear Lord. Father, I'm unworthy, dear Lord. Father, I don't deserve to be back here, dear Lord, but Father, I just want to lift up your holy name. I pray, God, dear Lord, that this message, it was not deep, it was not grand, but God, I just pray, dear Lord, that you would use it. I pray, God, that if there's one here in this congregation that's in fear of getting ready to dry up, God, Father, just put them back on the firing line, dear Lord. Help us be the man or woman that you would have us to be, dear Lord. Father, just don't let us dry up. Get us busy about your business, dear Lord. Father, just make this church who you would have it to be, dear Lord, and everything we ask in your name. Amen. Thank y'all. God bless y'all. Have a good evening.